All right. I'm gonna share our screen for presentation as people continue to come in. Okay. Oops. Oh. All right, just a moment. Okay, let's put it in the screen. Here we go. So welcome everyone. We are the Long Island Organics Council, and the topic of this meeting and event is greener schools, sustainability and composting practices. So thank you all for coming. Really happy to see the turnout.
Thank you, Judy, for putting it together.
Oh, thank you. I was happy too. So we're going to start with a little introduction to the Long Island Organics Council, and as well as to everyone who's here. And then we're going to focus right in on our presentation with our guest speaker tonight, who is Mark Warford. Then we'll have our Q&A session. So you guys will have a chance to ask Mark any questions you have. If you're representing a school, this will be a great chance for you to ask questions and how you can, maybe implement some things for your school district and what changes you can make in your community or any other questions you might have. And then we'll end off with some updates that we have for what has been going on in the organics community in New York, and as well as any upcoming events. And then we'll close off. So without further ado, welcome to everyone who is new, and welcome back to any returning members of our network. My name is Judy. I'm from Huntington in New York, and I'm a member of the Long Island Organics Council steering committee. So I work in, I actually own my own sustainable coffee company, and I've been running this organization as a co-director with my other fellow steering committee members, Beth, Fiteni, Joy, and our newest member, Francesca, you can see here. And I'd love for everyone to just write in the chat a little about themselves, their names, where they're from, maybe their interests in sustainability, composting, organics, etc. So Joy, Beth, Francesca, if you want to say a little hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Francesca.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to see this presentation.
Great. And please, everyone, write in the chat and introduce yourselves. We're really happy to have you all here.
Yeah, definitely. Part of the group is getting to meet each other and supporting each other's work. So please share anything that's pertinent in the chat.
Can't see the chat right now because I'm presenting, but if Beth or Francesca, you want to.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone has questions, you can put it in the chat also, or we'll probably, I guess, save it questions to the end.
Yes. All right. And a little bit about the Long Island Organics Council. We are here to build a strong network from across Long Island, and we are committed to the sustainable management of non-edible organic materials through all scales of composting, both municipal, community compost, local, even backyard composting, anaerobic digestion on a larger scale, and all beneficial uses of compost. So this is really what fuels our mission as a group. And everyone can still introduce themselves in the chat. as I introduce our speaker of the night, Mark Warford. I actually heard about Mark when I attended a DEC presentation, and he is from Bethlehem Central Middle School. He's the assistant principal, and he started this amazing initiative at his school. He was named New York State Assistant Principal of the Year, and Bethlehem Central School District was highlighted by the DEC for its sustainability and composting practices at the schools in this upstate New York district. Mark founded the Green Team, a district-wide committee that promotes sustainability and environmental initiatives. The team helped in the development of a small farm in Bethlehem's middle school that provides produce for district cafeterias and the Delmar Farmers Market. Additionally, it also donates to the town's food pantry. The Bethlehem Green Team was also one of the first districts to be awarded the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon School Award. And with their efforts, the school has ceased to use disposable trays, plastic cutlery, non-reusable plastic straws, and styrofoam containers, and it encourages the recycling of paper, glass, batteries, highlighters, and more. Without further ado, I will let Mark take over and tell us about his school district, how his school district became one of the most sustainable in New York, and how our schools can follow his successful model and do the same on Long Island. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Well, thank you, Judy. It's great to be here. You know, I mentioned earlier to the people that were here, I can't see myself on the screen, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second, but we're doing No Shave November. So I am typically like the picture that you see, but I'm growing a beard here for November. So that's what we're looking like here, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen right now, and just let me know when I am up and everything looks good. Are you able to see the main screen that I have up?
Yes, we can
Okay.
see.
All right. So I have a computer actually with two different screens. So I'm going to work off my screen on the right, assuming that everybody can see everything. So thank you. I appreciate the time to be here. And to my mind, public education's job is to prepare our kids for the future. Plain and simple. So we need to provide them with the skills, the tools, the knowledge that they need to be able to solve problems that they will face in the future. And some of the biggest issues that face our kids today are the environmental problems that exist. So for us to not educate our kids about the problems that exist and the role that each one of us plays, we miss the mark in preparing our kids for the future. So that's really what the Green Team's focus is. So the Green Team is comprised, there's a building, either administrator or teacher from every building in our district. We have 5 elementary schools, and we have a middle school, and we have a high school. And so the Green Team has a rep from every building, and we meet 3 to 4 times a year. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of run through the thinking of why we do what we do and how we highlight the areas that make our footprint on the planet and what we want to do to help our kids. So, real quick, preaching to the choir here, world population is going up. Resources are limited. So we have to be able to manage our resources as our world population continues to increase. All right. It seems like every place that humans come into contact with our environment, we have problems. Air pollution, water pollution, you name it, overfishing the oceans. There's a tremendous amount of environmental concerns that are out there, all of which are directly tied to human interaction with our environment. Our kids need to know this. So the question that we ask our students, particularly our high school and middle school students, is this. This is the mantra of the Green Team. Are you conscious of what you consume? Are you aware of what you use each day and how that affects our planet? So for our younger kids, it's what is your footprint on the planet, to help them understand that we leave a footprint on our planet. And those choices, what we did to make it easier for students to kind of wrap their head around it, is we created 3 different choices: the food that you eat, the energy you use, and the garbage that you make. So every day we eat food. How is that food grown? Where does that food come from? Every day we use energy. How is that energy produced? All right, and how much energy do we use? And every single day we create a certain amount of waste. Is that compostable, recyclable, reusable, or do we continue to throw it into a landfill or incinerator? So these are the three areas to make it simple for kids to focus on their footprint on the planet. All right. And so the goal is it's real easy to just talk about all the environmental problems that exist out there. All right. But what we aim to do is to show our students what environmental stewardship looks like. All right. What do we need to do to model for them? What does the future look like? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through how we focus on these three areas and how we model for students what environmental stewardship in the future looks like in terms of the food we eat, the energy we use, and then the garbage that we make. So here we go. Garbage we make, energy we use, food we eat, and then the environmental education pieces, some additional educational things that we do make up the four legs of the green team. Okay, so good garbage choices: refuse, reuse, recycle. I think we're way past reduce. All right, we're refuse. If I can't reuse it, if I can't recycle it, then, or if I can't compost it, then it shouldn't be packaged in that. That's basically where we need to go. And then composting is absolutely huge. And we'll definitely drill down into that in a little bit. All right. So in our school, we have commingled recycling in every single building in every district in our school. Every school has a blue recycling bucket next to a garbage can. Every place you go in our entire district: bus garage, transportation office, business office. Okay. In the middle school, in our schools, we have large flip top totes that are located in different locations within our building. So every Tuesday and Thursday are recycling days. So on the morning announcements in every building, they say, today is a recycling day. One student should empty the blue bucket from their homeroom at this time. And then students bring their blue buckets. Even little kids can bring their buckets out and empty them into receptacles that are located in the middle. This way, recycling isn't kind of this covert operation that's done by a club after school. Kids participate in the process of recycling. So they empty their blue buckets into the large containers, into the hallways. All right. We also have teams of students that go to each of the rooms in the building that don't have a homeroom. So you've got your nurse's office, you got your main office, your copy room, your phys ed offices, your OT-PT rooms, any of the rooms that don't have a homeroom with kids that can empty their buckets in the morning during the announcements. They go around and they empty each one of these rooms. It's actually a wonderful activity for some of our life skills classes. There are many students in buildings that really need some form of a structured activity in which they can work on their communication skills, they can work on their planning and their problem solving skills. So these groups, as well as our student council, will go around, and every Tuesday and Thursday we have just basically, it's like a bread route. Like here's a list of 15 rooms on this floor that need to have their buckets emptied. So they go around, they empty them into the totes. We have a scale in the downstairs room where we go ahead, we put the tote on, we subtract the amount of weight for the tote, then we log the paper amount down, and at the end of each month, we have a total for the recyclables that we pull. And so then we actually have a TV studio in our building in the middle school, and we announce the benefits. So when you recycle 1 ton of paper, you save 7,000 gallons of water, you save 60 pounds of pollution from the air, you save 17 trees from being cut down. So it's a sharing of information about what the environmental benefit is of the recycling that we did in the building. So commingled recycling is absolutely a foundation within our district. We have single stream recycling now. There used to be a really good market for paper before the pandemic, before China's national sword policy went in, when they stopped taking recyclables from the West. There was kind of a robust, we actually made a good amount of funding for our green team through our paper, but that basically collapsed. So we used to separate our paper separate from our commingled glass, plastic, and metal. But now that the paper recycling market is no longer pays, we're now full single stream. So paper, glass, plastic, metal, all of that goes into the same recycling containers peppered throughout the district. So numbers 1 through 7, we recycle all of our cardboard in all of our districts. Each building has a recycling dumpster and a garbage dumpster. And we used to have 2 garbage dumpsters in every building and 1 recycling dumpster. And now in some buildings, we have 2 recycling dumpsters and 1 garbage dumpster because we've switched the playing field for how much materials we collect. So we're also psyched that we have metal flatware in all of our schools. It's kind of crazy if we want to talk to kids about, if we want to model sustainability, but then we give them plastic forks every day to throw in the garbage that goes into a landfill or goes into an incinerator, it completely undermines what we're trying to do. So, the goal is to have a closed loop system where and when I do that, I do a presentation like this for all of the sixth graders that come into our building. And I say to them, in this picture, do you see a garbage can? No, because you don't need one, because the forks go in the cafeteria, go in the dishwasher, they come out clean, they go in the cafeteria, they go in the dishwasher, they come out clean. So it's closed loop. So all of our cafeterias in our district have metal flatware and reusable trays that we wash and we reuse over again. And there's a financial savings to that. It's certainly cheaper to buy plastic, but you have to keep buying it over and over and over again. And then when you have the labor cost of having to put the order in for 4 cases of plastic, and then you have to unload those cases into your storeroom, and then you have to take it out of your storeroom and put it on your lunch line, then you have to take it from your lunch line and go in the garbage. So in the end, reusing flatware is absolutely not only sustainable, but financially it makes more sense. You just have to make sure that your kids are aware of why you do it and support that effort with the kids. All right. In each of our cafeterias, we have waste stations that look like this. So we at one point had large waste stations with a whole bunch of different different sections. We used to TerraCycle, but TerraCycling has turned out to be not really what we thought it was in terms of juice pouches and those types of things. But so now what we've basically worked it down to is this. And every cafeteria, every custodial office across New York State has these materials. It's a 55-gallon blue recycle, gray tote for landfill or for garbage. It's a smaller container, a blue container for all the recyclables. And then there's another container where we collect all the food waste or the compost. The small red container on the right is where students put their silverware when they're done with their trays. So they walk up with their tray and they can either put it in recycling, food compost, or waste. You put your silverware in the red tray, and then you go and you drop your tray off in the front. So it's a pretty simple system, but it's a system that requires monitoring and getting buy-in from the students. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So we have food composting in all of our schools. We have a company called Compost 360. I think their contract for us is about $5,000 a year to pick up all of our food waste in all 7 of our buildings for the entire year. For a school budget, that's not a crazy amount of money. And I know that every school district out there doesn't have a composting company that is close to them or that they have accessible, but more and more and more, this is happening, in particular because of the new laws that have been passed this year that went into effect January 1st in 2022. And I've got a slide on that a little bit later, but composting facilities are beginning to pop up all over the place for real good reason. And I tell students, when I first started teaching, this is my 28th year teaching. And when I first started teaching, my interview for my first job, I did a presentation about environmental stewardship and about recycling and why it works. And as I would do presentations 24 years ago, I said, styrofoam is a terrible man-made product that never ever biodegrades, and someday it'll be banned in New York State. Well, styrofoam is banned in New York State now. My next prediction here is that by the time students are my age, every household in America is going to have 3 waste receptacles at their house. One for garbage, one for recycling, and one for compostable organic material, because it's that much of an environmental savings, decreasing that methane gas. So we're on the way, and that's why the Long Island Organics Council is in full swing here, and I appreciate being here because that's where we need to move to, and students need to understand why we need to move there. So we have food composting with a company that picks up our compost. They drop off totes like this. We have 2 to 3 of these composting totes at every school. Each of the cafeterias empty their individual compost into this each day, and this is picked up once a week. And they switch them out, and it's a simple process. It's just like having a either the recycling dumpster or the garbage dumpster. So we in the middle school also have what's called earth tubs. So these are vessels that have an auger in the middle that goes down. The top of this spins in a circle, and we can move the auger in and out. So we add food waste and dry material into this. So we compost some of our material at school. This is really as a demonstration for students about what composting looks like and how composting works. Trying to compost your food waste at your school on site is a complicated, difficult thing. We're very fortunate to have a company that picks it up and takes it to a compost facility. That is by far the best way to do it if you can, because the amount of food waste that generally is generated from schools is significant. And if you don't compost it properly, you run the risk of having this stinky pile of food waste in the back of your cafeteria that becomes an issue with people. So having some on-site composting is a wonderful thing for demonstration. But if you're going to really compost as a school or as a district, working with a composting company, if that's available to you, is absolutely the best way to do it. So basically, this is an earth tub. In the side, there's a bin that it comes out. Okay, so it basically turns this right back into this. All right, when students see food waste that gets turned back into organic material, it just blows their mind. They're like, whoa, what do you mean it just turns back into beautiful, rich dirt? That's how Mother Nature works. That's why we need to get in line with the natural systems that are already provided for us. And so the goal is again, that closed loop. So the compost from the earth tub goes into our school garden, which grows food in our garden, that goes into the cafeteria, that goes into the earth tub, that goes in the garden. So that closed loop is what we want students to really be able to see. So we also do, in terms of the garbage that we make, the waste reduction, we used to do marker recycling through Crayola. Crayola would collect. Now, the days of chalkboards are over. Most classrooms don't have a chalkboard with chalk anymore. Everything is whiteboards with vis-a-vis markers or whiteboard markers. Well, every time that marker runs out, you've got a piece of plastic there that needs to go somewhere. So we would recycle those through Crayola, but during the pandemic, they halted their recycling. So we're still collecting them and stockpiling them. And we're hoping Crayola is going to begin doing this again, or we can find another avenue to be able to recycle them. But, and it's pretty simple. You've got, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but it's just every one of our classrooms has got a coffee can with a marker recycling piece of paper over the front of it. And when your vis-a-vis or your highlighters or your other pencils like that, you just put them in the can. And then we have this one receptacle in the middle of the building. And when it gets full, you ask a student to go and dump it in. So relatively simple, but everything that we do makes a difference. Every highlighter that we throw in the garbage that goes to a landfill and incinerator is a highlighter that could be recycled potentially. So the marker recycling we've done. We also do our film plastic recycling. The Trex Lumber Company uses film bag plastic to create the lumber that they use. And we've been doing this for years. Hannaford's is one of the main collection sites. So every one of our buildings in the district has a plastic film collection that we use, and then we drop off to Hannaford. And this includes bread bag wrappers, any of the plastic wrappers that come in, like cases of Gatorade, cases of water, cases of toilet paper. In our kitchens, you've got tons and tons of canned goods that come in a cardboard box and then a plastic wrap that goes over the top of it. All that plastic is completely recyclable. So we collect those from each of our buildings. When we were in COVID, we actually couldn't serve food because of state regulations. So every kid, it killed me, because we had plastic bags with individual lunches with plastic forks. And so this is just some of the plastic bags that we collected during that COVID period that we would drop off. So the back of my truck is filled with plastic bags here. So we also recycle all of our batteries in the district, all of our toner cartridges, and all of our electronics. So our district as a whole, these are the different 5 elementary schools, middle school, high school, transportation. Everybody recycles their cardboard, their paper, commingled glass, plastic, metal, toners, batteries, electronics. We're composting in all of our schools, metal flatware, and then writing utensils. So, the goal again is to model for students, how do we decrease our footprint on the planet in terms of the garbage that we make? Well, you reuse as much as you can, you recycle as much as you can, and then you compost anything that's compostable. So that's how we model for kids, how we decrease the garbage that we make. All right. Next category is the food that we eat. Organic and locally grown food absolutely is what we want to focus kids on. So we have gardens at each one of our elementary schools, the middle school and the high school. Different gardens are in different stages because you get parents that are really invested, but then as their kids move up, they move up. So different gardens are in different phases of operation. The biggest garden we have, though, is at the middle school. All right. And the middle school garden, we have two different areas. There's a section of raised beds and a section of large growing areas. This is what the raised beds look like in our garden. These beds are actually 4 foot wide by 25 foot long. We got about 20 of them on one side of our building. They're made from 100% recycled lumber from the Trex Lumber Company, not Trex. I have to get the name. I built them 15 years ago. And they look beautiful still today. But so these raised beds house vegetables that we grow 2 growing seasons. So in the early spring, we will plant these raised beds with beans, radishes, lettuce, carrots, peas, Swiss chard, kale, vegetables that take 60 to 70 days to grow. We'll do a whole section of vegetables, pick them, and then in August we plant again and we get a whole nother fall harvest of the same vegetables, and everything gets rotated around. All right. On the other side of our cafeteria is the large growing area. So there's 7 different areas. Each one is 25 by 20. All right. We have in-ground water lines that go to each one of those areas, and each one of those has an individual water spigot with drip line irrigation. All right. Water is essential to growing, essential to life. 70% of all the water in the world is used to irrigate crops. Much of it is used in the deserts and used in ways where, if you have a water spigot that goes, a vast majority of that water evaporates before it even gets to the root of the plant. So drip line irrigation is really the future of food production in terms of conserving water. If all farming was done with drip line irrigation, we would not be having a water crisis. Plain and simple. So we have drip lines on the large growing area. Couple of sheds that have a bunch of different tools. We have a bunch of grow lights where we'll start our plants early in the spring, and then we transplant those out into our larger gardens. And the middle school, we now have 40 grow lights. So in the spring, we'll grow 40 trays of plants. Each one has about 40 plants per tray. And so then we send these out to all the different elementary schools and schools in the district so that we grow the food that we grow. And we grow thousands of pounds of food in our garden at school. So we have a garden club at the middle school. The kids really do the work. I think I've got like 35 6th graders in the garden and about 25 7th and 8th graders. So there's over 50 kids that are in garden club. We meet 2 times a week. Right now we are at the phase where we just had our first hard frost about a week ago. So it's interesting because you talk with students about how, we're not really in charge. The earth is in charge. We're inhabiting the earth. And when you get kids that are out there and they're working in the garden, and then you get that hard frost, everything's dead. Done. Garden season ends when Mother Nature says the garden season ends. That's how it works. And the kids are just blown away. So now we're in the cleanup phase. We've harvested all of our vegetables, and now we're cleaning up and getting ready to have compost from a local farm being brought in that will work into the soil and get the garden ready for bed. But Garden Club meets 2 times a week after school. We also, with our garden, we have family and consumer science classes, and part of those classes talk about local agriculture, talk about organic agriculture. So along with with the garden, we have large display boards that talk about how the difference between organically grown food and food that's dependent upon chemicals to grow. And we talk about crop rotation and plant nutrition and pest management, all the organic methods that we use at our garden. We've been gardening at our middle school now for over 15 years, and every year we get thousands and thousands of pounds of food that we grow there. So we can model for kids, this is what local organic agriculture looks like, and you can begin to support that through farmers markets and through local supermarkets as it becomes more and more available. Good portion of our food is used in our school cafeteria. Any food that you grow in your garden that's not processed is not subject to New York State rules in terms of health codes. You can use any fresh vegetables from a school garden in a cafeteria. I hear schools say, oh, you can't do that. You got to go through all these hoops. And you don't. As long as it's not processed, you can use food in your school cafeteria. So we use a lot of it. And one of the things we do, we donate over 1,000 pounds of food each year from our gardens at school. And this is a great way to get grants. Many of the grants, if you're donating food to local food pantries or other high need areas, there's funding available to help you build a garden if that's one of the goals that you have there. So it's great for us to be able to do that. We're very fortunate to have a farmer's market at our middle school. We have over 50 vendors at our farmer's market, over 2,000 people a weekend that come out. So the students will 3 or 4 times a year, set up a table and sell the produce that we grow in the back of the building. So they get to use their communication skills, their math skills, and really be able to engage the community. So one of the biggest events we do at our school is what's called Salads for Kids Day. So in the fall, when the kids come back, we have tons of lettuce and tomatoes and carrots and radishes and green beans. So parents come into the building and they prepare salads. You can see the whole bunch of salads on the tables, and all the salads are prepared and put in compostable bowls. So on Salads for Kids Day, which is typically the first Friday in October, which is New York State Harvest for Kids Week, it's a week-long celebration by New York State Ag and Markets of local agriculture. So that's the Friday that we serve the salads to the kids, and it's a great day to talk about local agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and no waste, because you have a compostable bowl with lettuce. Anything that you don't eat, you just put it in the compost. You put your fork where it goes. Lunch with no garbage. There you go. That's what we should be doing. We should be looking to do that everywhere that we go. So that's our Salads for Kids Day. We also partner with a local restaurant, Garden Bistro. Every Thursday night during the month of October, they do a BC Meals Night. And on the right, that's a 3-course meal that they offer. And everything in red are vegetables that are grown in our school garden. So we get 15% of the proceeds. So it's a great win-win. Garden Bistro pulls in, all types of parents throughout our district that typically may not eat at their restaurant, but they want to support the school and the green initiatives. So, they buy a meal from Garden Bistro, so they get great PR. And plus we get funding for our garden program. And it's just been a great collaboration. John, the guy who owns Garden Bistro, he comes down on Wednesday with his son, who's like 3 years old, and they walk around the garden and he's like, all right, let's do some kale, let's do some green beans, let's do some lettuce. And it's been just a great collaboration and a way to raise PR about the school programs and the school gardens. So that's really how we highlight for students locally grown food and organically grown food. And there's really no better way to get kids invested in local or organic food than by having them eat it. And when you pick fresh green beans on a Thursday night after school garden club, and then you put them in the cooler in nice ice water, and then you bring them out and you hand out fresh beans on Friday as part of the Salads for Kids Day, they just taste so good. And the kids just are amazed. And the parents that come in to work our Salads for Kids Day, they just love it because they're like, oh my God, my kid's eating vegetables. I can't get my kid to eat a vegetable at home and they want a second salad. So because that's what fresh organic food tastes like. So it's a great way to hook them in. So that's garbage that we make. That's food that we eat, energy that we use. We stress energy conservation and renewable energy. Our buildings, many of our buildings are Energy Star recognized by the Department of Energy because we've had a tremendous amount of energy upgrades in our building. Like was mentioned earlier, we also won the Green Ribbon School Award. Much of that was a part of energy efficiency. So we've got it. There's a 2 kilowatt solar array that was put out by NYSERDA, I think like 10 years ago. Many schools in New York State got a 2 kilowatt system as a learning tool. But since then, we have installed a 16-acre solar array farm that basically produces about 85% of our electricity in our district right now. And I know many districts have done this because it makes sense. You can engage in an energy performance contract with a vendor. And so we're saving a tremendous amount of money as a district. And at the same time, getting our energy from pollution-free resources. So we can tell the students that, the presentation I'm doing for you right now on this computer, the electricity that's coming from this, 85% of that comes from solar panels, which produce zero pollution. That's where we need to go in terms of the energy that we use in the future. Whole bunch of energy efficiency updates, LED lights throughout our whole entire district. That was a huge, we saved almost $90,000 a year just by putting LED lights in our whole entire district. Just the energy alone. Motion detector switches that turn lights off. We had new windows that were put in, building envelopes, making sure that we're not losing heat during the winter. So a lot of things that went into our operations and maintenance that helped our buildings. And that was through an energy performance contract. So there's companies that will come in and basically the money you save through the upgrades to making your buildings more sustainable will pay their salary for the energy performance contracts. So that's what we did. We send out energy conservation messages. So before we go home for Thanksgiving, the green team will send out to all teachers in the building, do you know if you leave your computer monitor running for the next 4 days, it's going to cost the district, $1.20 per monitor, plus this is the amount of carbon you're going to put into the air. Unplug anything you can unplug, shut off all your electronics, conserve energy while you're away. So before each holiday, the Christmas holiday, February break, April break, we send out a message to encourage people to conserve energy throughout the district. We have automatic shutdowns in our buildings. So all of our heating systems at 4 o'clock in the afternoon drop from the 68 degrees that they are kept during the day. They drop it down 10 degrees. So there's a huge energy savings with that. And then the solar array that I just mentioned. So, so that's how we focus on garbage that we make, food that we eat, energy that we use is how we model for our students and continually talk about it. And then these are like some of the other environmental programs that we do to support those things. One of them, we have at the high school, we have a smaller school. It's called Lab School. And those Lab School students go out to each of our elementary schools. Actually, they're going out in another week and a half during America Recycles Day in November. And they do a presentation for all the students that have big colorful display boards about what's recyclable, what's not, why we recycle, why we compost. So the elementary school kids love it. The high school kids are like rock stars when they go back to their elementary school and they do their presentation, and the kids, they do a little skit and they dress up, and it's fun, but it's informative. And we've actually had the building custodians at the elementary schools right around the end of October, when are the Lab School kids coming? The kids need a little refresher here. When are they coming out? So even the custodians have recognized the value of having other students come in and be the leaders and kind of show kids how to sort properly. We do a couple of recycling events in collaboration with our town where we recycle textiles, electronics, bicycles, metal, books, shredded paper. We've got one coming up on November 19th at the middle school where we're going to be doing a recycling event. We usually collect thousands of pounds of recyclables that would otherwise go into a landfill or some other place. One of the cool things we do is called Litterless Lunch. We really struggled with around Earth Day. What activity could we do that's district wide that it doesn't require tremendous collaboration, or, everybody has different stuff going on. So we came up with litterless lunch. So during the week of Earth Week, any student that comes to school and brings a lunch that doesn't create any garbage gets a ticket that they can put their name on, that gets put in a bin for a drawing at the end of the week. And we give out certificates to local businesses, to the farmers market. And so, recycling is great, but during litterless lunch week, you have to create no garbage. So reusable lunchbox, reusable food containers, reusable cloth napkin, reusable drink container. So if you create no garbage, you get a ticket, and it creates a lot of buzz, and it creates a good conversation with students about the amount of garbage that we make. And look how easy it is to live a zero waste or reduce waste living by just being aware of the choices you make each day. So the litterless lunch thing has been a really big hit, and easy to implement, and a great way to have conversations about the garbage that we make. We do a plant sale for the teachers. Our students give tours of the garden in the spring. So when we'll sell at the farmers market, we also put the big display boards up that we use in the FACS classes, and people can come out and walk through the gardens, and they kind of check out, how we do what we do. We do a guess the weight of the pumpkin. I buy the pumpkins from a local farm. I don't grow these big, huge pumpkins. I found there's not enough juice for the squeeze with pumpkins. I'd rather grow food that we can donate to people for them to eat than grow pumpkins. So, but we buy from a local farmer, and we do a guess the weight of the pumpkin contest in the fall. And it gives us an opportunity to discuss local farmers and, what they do for our community. So how we actually funded the green team, none of this comes from district money. So everything, the gardens that we built, everything that we did basically came from grants that we wrote or contests that we did. So we now have, it's called Clink through the Hannaford program. So people can recycle their cans and bottles. Hannaford, the Clink program, we hand out 55-gallon just plastic bags with a tag on it. And when you fill it up with recyclable bottles and you bring it to Hannaford, there's a little scan gun where you scan it, you throw the whole thing in the bin, all the money goes to the charity of your choice. So, so we do Clink as part of our program. We have a textile box, clothing and shoe box, which generally, it generates about $100 a month that we put toward the green team. So there's over $1,000. The garden bistro meals night that we do, that generates about $1,000 each year. And then our farmers market sales, I mean, it's incredible. We make, we make $1,000 to a couple $1,000 in vegetable sales over 3 or 4 times that we do it. So, and that's enough money to just keep our initiatives, and all the initiatives that I just mentioned don't really cost a lot of money. Once you have the infrastructure in place, it's really just supporting it through talking about it in your school and having different events that kind of keep it on the front burner so that people are aware and people continue to participate. All right. So, so those are the things that the BC Green Team does throughout our district to raise awareness and model sustainability in the future. So in terms of Long Island organics and composting, all right. Right now there's 5 states in the country that have mandatory composting laws where residential composting is the law. Seattle, California, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. So like I said, by the time students are my age, I truly believe that every state in the union is going to have mandatory composting because of the environmental benefits of removing our food waste from landfills. So effective January 1st this year was the New York State Food Donation and Food Scraps Recycling Law. So it requires businesses, large businesses and institutions to donate accessible edible food and recycle or compost any food scraps if there's an organic recycler within 25 miles of their operation. And there is beginning to be recycling operations popping up in municipalities all over the place. Bethlehem has one of the largest composting facilities, municipal facilities. So we're very lucky to be able to partner with them, because all of the food from our schools goes to our Bethlehem composting facility, turned into soil, and then goes right back into the town of Bethlehem. So it's actually that whole closed loop with us as well. Okay, so the EPA will tell you one of the main sources of methane gas is landfills. When you put food waste into a landfill, it doesn't biodegrade, it rots and turns into methane. And there you go. So, you know, we're the only living thing on this planet that isn't zero waste. We're the only living thing on the planet that's making toxic waste, plastic waste, waste that doesn't go away. That needs to change, and we absolutely can change it. So I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but these are some of the facts that I share with our cafeteria monitors when we ask them to support our composting, and our teachers. You know, 60 billion pounds of food waste going to landfills. Half of our garbage could be composted if we just did it, but most of it isn't. And then methane gas, 80 times more potent than greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So, you know, any way you look at it, it's crazy that we're throwing our organic matter into a landfill or an incinerator, as opposed to just turning it right back into this beautiful, rich soil that's beneficial and actually helps plants grow to pull carbon out of the air. So a perfectly good solution, and we've got a problem, but you know, that's why we're here. So this was part of the problem that we had last year when we came out of COVID and we just put the composting buckets into all the cafeterias. This is what we got. All right. So the lesson that we learned is students need assistance. So what we do now is at the beginning of the school year, we ask a couple of parents to come in and help the students sort their food waste for just about a week or so at the beginning of the school year, because kids get into the habit. So if you have an adult standing at the 3 bins to help them sort out what goes where, after a week or so, the kids get it. So second layer after that, okay, so this is basically what our goal is. Food scraps from Bethlehem schools goes to the composting company, goes to our Bethlehem composting facility, and goes right back into the town. So that's that closed loop. Okay. General guidelines that we have for the adults that go into the cafeteria about what is a landfill, what's compost, what's recyclable. And it's tricky, to be honest with you. The compost is the easy part. Any food waste that you have is compostable. All right. It's the recycling that's the tough part, because there's so many different plastics that people are bringing into the building from outside, and, you know, new food that's, that the food service department purchases that is in a different type of plastic. So it's constantly changing. So it certainly requires effort, but you know, it absolutely can be done. So these are some of the different things that we separate into to try and keep the waste as contaminant free as we can, and still recycle as much as we can, but fully knowing, when you're working with elementary schools, you're teaching kids about sorting waste. That's really what the goal is. You're going to have some contamination. You're going to have some plastics that don't get recycled that could. But the bottom line is, if I think in the future and we come up with the best, greenest waste system where our whole packaging industry is on board and everything is packaged in like cardboard or recyclable materials, there is always going to be a certain amount of sorting that we have to do. We're never going to be to a point where everything just goes into one bin and we don't have to worry about it. There's always going to be your organic matter goes here, your recyclables go here, whatever. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach kids that we cannot live in a future where we just keep throwing everything out. There has to be a sorting of materials, and that's going to change as our packaging industry changes, as our food delivery system changes, and we get more in line with what we need to do. But the bottom line is there's always going to be some sorting that has to happen. And that's what we're trying to teach kids is to be mindful of that. You shouldn't go anywhere with the mindset of just throw it in the garbage. That's what's killing us. So that's why we have our different signs every single elementary school, the middle school, high school, everybody has the same signage. So every kid that comes through the school district sees the same thing, 3 different things: garbage, recycling, composting. So consistency is absolutely huge. And then what we've also found out is, even with parents that help assist, even with clear signage, we're talking about kids. Kids throw ketchup packages here. They throw this, there is always going to be some contaminants that get into the compost. So what we do is we've enlisted the help of students to be basically compost cleaners. So at the end of the lunch period, students at the elementary level, 4th grade, 5th grade, they go to the cafeteria, they put on a plastic glove, and we've got the containers that are relatively shallow but wide. So the food waste is all right there. And you can, in a matter of 30 seconds, pull out the cup, pull out the plastic bag, pull out the juice pouch, pull out whatever, throw it in the garbage, take your glove off, done. Takes a minute to a minute and a half. But that's the only way that we have found that we can actually make sure that the food waste isn't full of contaminants before it goes to our town composting facility. All right, so it's that simple. But again, it's simple in theory, but getting people on board, getting students that show up each day, sometimes students don't make it. So I am certainly not trying to blow sunshine in the room that, everything is perfect, because we are still working on it as well in our district. So 25 minutes. There you go. I told you 20 minutes. So we went to, actually, we had a 5-minute intro. So I kept it to 20 minutes there. So that's what we do here at our school. And I would be happy to answer any questions that people might have about what you have.
But before we go into questions, I want to say thank you so much, Mark, for your presentation. That was super informative. And I'm really excited for us to get into this discussion. I want everyone to be aware that I believe on this call right now, we have Glenda. She's still, yes. Glenda's in here. She is the owner of the only commercial food scraps composting facility on Long Island. And if any of you are from the schools, maybe you would be interested in keeping contact with her for getting some type of pickup from the schools. As Mark mentioned earlier, it's really great to have an association with some type of composting facility, and she's the first facility on Long Island that accepts food scraps. And if you can, please put your email in the chat, and we can, connect you to one another, or if you want us to connect you to Mark or to Glenda, then we can do so as well. So just drop all your emails in the chat. And that's all from me. Let's get into this Q&A discussion, which will be facilitated by Francesca.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, just raise your hand or shout out and I'll be here.
There are a few questions in the chat as well.
Oh, yes. Great. So I'm going to start with sustainable windage.
Okay, I put it in the chat too. I noticed that in your collections, when you had the 3 collection bins, that each one has a plastic bag in it. How does that work with the composting? Do you pull out the bags? What do you do with them?
Yeah, the compost has a compostable plastic bag in it. So you can pull the whole bag out, put it right in the compost. And our composting, there's many different options for compostable bags now. And the really good news is that, our composting facility doesn't accept food containers with PFOA chemicals on the inside. So they're very particular. But one thing that they found was that compostable bags that are certified compostable actually break down and are acceptable. So that makes it much easier for our custodians. You just pull the bag out, put it in the compost receptacle.
So that receptacle has a different bag than the others.
Yes.
All right, great. So moving on to the next question, in the chat, Mark said, when are K-12 going to be held to this law? So regarding the composting, the mandatory composting.
Yeah, in the New York State law, they mentioned that schools would be considered large organizations, but however, because of much of what happened with COVID, schools were not part of that. But I don't know when the deadline, when that will happen, but there's no question in my mind that at some point in the near future, schools are going to be required to start composting their food waste. The law that was passed this year for large scale organizations, which includes supermarkets, universities, that was the first step in trying to move toward a zero waste in many of the states. So I think that schools will soon be added to that list. When, I don't know.
Thank you so much. The next question is, how many adults in the school are actually helping with this program?
I mean, honestly, we have one green team rep from each of our schools. Our custodial staff, it's been 15 years of working with the custodians, but our custodial staff is actually very supportive of this. So the recycling that happens in the buildings, the custodians, their job is really to manage the waste in the building anyway. So one of the things a picture I didn't put up there was, though, in all of our hallways, in every hallway you've got garbage cans in the hallway so that people can manage their waste. Well, in our hallways we have a garbage can and a recycle bucket right next to it, and it's really important to have those two together and next to one another, because if you've got a garbage can here and then a recycling bucket down the hall here, you're going to get a mixture of waste in both of them. They need to be together so that it's easy to make a choice, recycling or garbage. And then when the custodians come through to pick those up, there you go. You've got the waste and you've got your recycling. So, there's not a tremendous amount of adults that are involved in the process, because now it's kind of become part of the school culture. The recycling that we do in the building. I mean, the gardens, each school has a garden. They have a garden leader, that the teacher that kind of coordinates the garden and works with parents and figures it out. But it's any program that you put in has to be easy, has to be simple to understand, simple to implement. I just showed you everything that we do. It's 3 cans in the cafeteria with proper signage. It's with the gardens, it is just working in the gardens with parents and other people. So it's certainly work, but it needs to be easy for people to understand and easy to maintain. So if you do that, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of people to keep it going, but it does require collaboration with your custodial staff and, with your food service, if you want to use any food in the cafeteria.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, what brand of compostable bags do you use?
We've switched. I have a little individual composter in my office for my food waste. And I've got a couple of different compostable, I've tried, here's super bio compostable bags, and here's food scrap and leaf compostable bags that I've tried both of them. And, there's many different biodegradable bags that are out there. And I would say that, and also too, if you purchase them through your school, you can get significant discounts because you're buying them through your school. So whoever does your purchasing and whoever buys your regular plastic bags through, through Uline or whatever company that you use, they will have compostable bags that are available as well. So there's a whole bunch of different varieties. Just Google compostable bags and you'll get a whole bunch.
Great. And the next question by Gloria again is, how does the toner cartridges get recycled, and film plastic as well?
Okay, film plastic, each one of the, as I mentioned, the Trex Lumber Company, if you sign up for their film plastic recycling, they'll send you a box, a collection box that can be put in the school. So we have a collection box at each of the schools, and each of the green team reps from each school oversees that. So once the box is full, you literally just pull the bag out of it, and then we drop it off to Hannaford. They have a plastic collection recyclable. It's as easy as pull your car up to the front and you drop it off right in the front. So each green team rep picks up their plastic film, and plastic film, you can really, it's all full of air. When you push it down, you can put a whole bunch in there. So I'd say, I would say once every month, I'll drop off a couple of big bags, because I have 2 of those containers at the middle school. Each elementary school has 1. We have not opened that up to the community. If we started telling community members that they can bring in all of their film plastic to our schools, we would just be inundated with it. We encourage parents to take it to Hannaford themselves, but we try and collect everything in the building. Kids will come in with, but now that now that plastic bags are kind of a thing of the past, you don't get them at supermarkets anymore. There's not nearly as many plastic bags, but there's a lot of plastic single-use wrapping that comes with containers and tissue paper and that kind of stuff. But anything that we get, everything in the middle school, we try and collect in all of our schools. So we're managing our schools, but we're not asking community members to bring stuff in. And then there was a second part to that, not the film wrap, but
It was who takes toner cartridges?
our operations and maintenance department, our IT department, collects all of the toner cartridges when they go through and they pull all those out, and then we send them out to, I would have to check with O&M, but again, they check with different companies where they can go ahead and they can recycle those. And that changes because the recycling market is continually changing. New people, we just got a new electronics recycler. We had someone that collected electronics at our recycling events, and then they went out of business for whatever reason. So last year we didn't collect electronics at our recycling event, just textiles and plastic toys and bikes, but we just found another electronics recycler that's really excited to come on board. So things change. So you just keep your eyes open for who's out there.
Excellent. I also just wanted to highlight what Judy said in the chat, that most grocery stores actually have plastic collections. So thinking Stop and Shop on Long Island, King Cullen, Wild by Nature,
Sure.
Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. They're not in every single one, but I've seen them in many. And you can also bring your toner cartridges to Best Buy or Staples. And yeah, so I'll move on to the next question. 1 second. So Joy said, we're just wondering if you have assisted other schools to set up similar programs.
Yes. Several schools around the area. I've assisted with, this is the 3rd school district I've worked for. So I started teaching in Guilderland, which is outside of Albany. And then I was at East Greenbush, and now I've been here at Bethlehem for about 15 years. But at each of those schools, I set up similar programs. That's just what I do. So, and then other schools have come and visited, and I've assisted them as well. So yes.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
So one more from Gloria. What are the best places to start with this program, like to implement it?
Okay, I would probably, the first place I would probably start would be with recycling. Recycling, it's the easiest. You can get containers, you can get buckets for your classroom. If you're gonna, food composting is definitely complicated because you're talking about food waste. So you really have to have a good system in place to be able to manage collecting that food waste and who's going to take it to the food composting company. Recycling is the quickest and easiest way to be able to help your school start to sort your waste. Commingle glass, plastic, and metal versus waste. The second would be reusable trays and metal flatware. Most every kitchen that serves food has a dishwasher that washes their pots, their pans. So they have the capability to wash trays and metal flatware. Again, that requires a collaboration with your food service department, because the first thing they're going to say is, it's too much work. We don't have time to do this, but it really is not a tremendous amount of work. You know, you simply buy this, it's the same racks that you put your pots, your pans, your cooking supplies on that runs through your dishwasher. You can purchase racks that you can put, you know, 35 trays on a rack, and then another rack that you can put all the metal flatware in, and you run it right through the same dishwasher. But it requires more buy-in. So how I've typically start with recycling, put blue recycling containers in your hallways, in your classes, start with that. Metal flatware and recyclable trays are a next logical step. And then if food waste is the next step after that. But it's all a matter of what kind of buy-in you have, and you know, how many people in your school really will support it. You could do any one in any order that you want, but recycling is probably the easiest to start with and get waste management and reduction and separating on the map and discussion throughout your building.
Thank you so much. One more question is, can you share the material used to build your garden beds that have lasted for 15 years?
Sure. Yep. Yes, I can look up the actually it's called Tangent Recycled Plastic Lumber. So that's the name of the company. But I'm actually in the process of, I helped build a garden at a temple that we belong to. And there's a bunch of different recycled plastic lumber companies out there. If you just Google recycled plastic lumber, you're going to find 10, 15 different vendors that have recycled plastic lumber that's available. And so it's a matter of, who's got the best cost and the sizes that you want. But Tangent Recycled Lumber is who I went with originally.
Great, thank you so much. I think Beth has her hand raised.
Yes, hi. I started a green team in our school district here. I'm a volunteer parent. I have a couple, I feel like I could talk to you all day. I have a million questions, but here's two. One is, do you feel like you've really changed the culture in the schools? Like, for example, if there's like a music concert and they have a food afterwards, like, are they continuing this on their own when it's not in the cafeteria? Will they be giving out water bottles, plastic water bottles at that reception afterwards? Or do they know, like, the culture of this school is we just don't do those kinds of things? So that's my first question about the culture. And the second question is, have you tried anything in terms of reducing the amount of meat that's served in the cafeteria? In terms of, because of their environmental impact of meat.
Okay. So first question, culture. I would say that absolutely, we have seen a change in the culture of the students, and how I would, the data I would use for that would be just the amount, the less amount of contaminants that we are seeing in our recyclables, in the hallways and in the classrooms. Kids are starting to get it. Teachers are starting to get it. We used to have a ton of, half full Dunkin' Donuts cups that were in the recycling and garbage in the recycling. And we've definitely seen cleaner recyclables. There's no question that we've seen cleaner compost. That picture I showed you with all the plastics and all the garbage in there. We definitely see in the middle school and the elementary schools and the high school where kids are getting it. I'm very pleased with the amount of food waste that is contaminant free that we're generating. So that means kids are getting it. We just recently had a school Halloween party. 900 kids came to our school and we had a huge Halloween party. And so, we certainly did provide Gatorade, which was in a plastic bottle, water that was in a plastic bottle. But, we are now to the point where when custodians put out receptacles to collect waste, it's on a dolly with two receptacles. There's a garbage can and a recycle bucket right next to each other. And after the event, which I coordinate, I went around and I looked, and you know, the plastic bottles were in the recycle bucket, the popcorn bags were in the garbage, the food waste was in the garbage. Was there some mixing? Absolutely. There's always going to be. But overall, absolutely, I do believe that students do get it and they do follow through with it and they do take it with them as they move forward. Second question with meat, we had a discussion last year about having meatless Mondays where we serve lunch that doesn't have any meat products in it as a way to highlight that. Our food service director left. We have a new food service director in now. So I've been treading lightly to make sure that we're on board with reusable trays, reusable flatware, because a lot of food service companies, a lot of food service organizations, they still use styrofoam trays, plastic silverware. It's just they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have to deal with the management of that. So I've been working with our new food service director to make sure that those things are in place. And then some discussions about that. I'd love to see that happen.
Thank you so much for your questions, Beth.
Mhm.
All right, let me see if there's any more. There is a question. What's a question we haven't asked so far, but we should ask?
Is that the question? What
Yeah,
question
like
should we
if
ask that we haven't asked right so far? Oh, that's a good question.
yeah.
Good question. I guess maybe it would be, how do you get buy-in from your administration? Because in the end, you know, the food service directors, the heads of operations and maintenance that are in charge of your custodial staff, they're the ones that are going to have to, you know, bottom line is, both of those groups of people, well-meaning, want to do a good job, but they're going to see reusable trays, reusable flatware. They're going to see composting, recycling as additional work. It's more work instead of everything just going in the garbage can like we've always done it this way. My guy walks around, he empties all the garbage cans in the hallways and the building is clean. You know, we don't need another bucket, or, you know, or you get people that, when you do have people that don't know how to recycle properly and they put contaminants in the recycling, you know, that's a reason why we shouldn't continue to do this. You know, I would just say that, you know, it's become very evident that we cannot continue to generate the amount of waste that we generate. And we need to be able to inform kids about and model for kids, for our kids, how we can reduce this waste. And there's plenty of examples in municipalities that are moving in that direction. So our whole waste system is moving in a direction of decreasing the amount of waste that we create. Our whole food system, believe it or not, is moving in a direction of more sustainable, more local. So it's completely in line with helping our kids to be successful in the future. And it's really good PR for a school to do this. So that's how you sell it to your administration. Our kids need it, and it's great PR for us to be able to say that we're modeling this for our kids.
Thank you so much, Mark, for all of your answers to our questions. If there are any more questions at this time, please let me know in the chat or raise your hand. But all right. If that's everything, I'll give it to Judy.
Yes, so thank you everyone for participating in the Q&A. And if you have any other questions as well, if you think of any last minute ones, you can put them in the chat. Oh yes, Glenda.
Yeah, I put the question in the chat. So my questions were, where does the school get the budget for composting, and does the facility get paid by the school? Who does the hauling for you, and does the school pay for that hauling, as well as what kind of composting method does the facility do?
Okay, yes. So yes, the school district does pay for the service to have our compost picked up. So we use a company called Food Scraps 360. And they drop off containers to each one of our schools at the district. By law, we have to bid everything out. We used to use a company called Natural Upcycling. They actually won several awards in Rochester. They're a recycling company. But Food Scraps 360 is a local company that just started. That's fantastic. And so, we put it out to bid, just like you put out your garbage bid for who's going to pick up your waste and your recycling, or you put out bids for for your food materials that you use. So we put out a bid, and Food Scraps 360 was the best choice. So we went with them, and it's basically just it's in the budget. And I mean, again, our budget is millions of dollars a year. $6,000 to pay for a food composting company to pick up once a week at all of our schools is not a significant amount of money, given the benefits to the kids and to our district. So we do pay for the service. They do come and they pick it up. We bid it out. And then we have, we've got an aerobic composting system where we've got, the air pipes in the ground with the big furrow rows. And it's managed. We also, in our town goes around and they pick up all the leaf scrap. So right now there's big trucks that are going up and down the town that are picking up everybody's leaves. They rake them to the front and they pick up all the leaves. So the leaves provide the organic matter that we mix with the food compost that creates the compost at our town facility. Does that answer your question about the composting?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Thank you.
Okay.
Someone asked if we could share your email to the chat. Is that okay, Mark?
Sure. Yeah, by all means.
Right. So again, if anyone has any other questions, you can ask them in the chat, but I'm going to share my screen to just finish our updates for the evening. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to have Beth go over these updates for you. And again, any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Francesca, you can call them out because I cannot see them.
Thank you, Mark. That was great. It was really inspiring. I wish every school on Long Island was like that.
Thank you.
So you had already mentioned about the food scraps recycling law, which, we've been talking about through the Organics Council for a while now. And I just wanted to point out that the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, actually released its list of the entities that would have to, or institutions that would have to be complying with the law if they were within 25 miles of a compost facility. So I guess anyone that's not within 25 miles of Glenda's facility on Long Island, unfortunately, probably had to put in a waiver. So there's the website right there. You look up the food scrap law, it's on their website. They do have a webinar coming up on November 17th with technical assistance for all of these institutions. So it might be worthwhile for some of us to be on that webinar just to learn ourselves. But if we can go to the next slide, it's pretty shocking, actually. Like I was really sort of overwhelmed to hear that, I did an analysis of the list that they provided. And you can see there that it's broken down into colleges and universities, correctional facilities, groceries, hospitality, restaurants, and super centers like Walmarts and things like that. And so you can see there's 108 locations in Nassau and 106 in Suffolk that should be complying with this law. So that's 214. And actually there were a few more. There were a couple of extra I found on the list that didn't fit into those categories. So it's almost 220 places. So, we were just thinking in terms of the Long Island Organics Council, if there was any ideas of what people think we should do to respond to this, because we were thinking about writing an op-ed to the newspaper, like letting people know this, and maybe, contacting elected officials or even the economic development agencies from the state to encourage them to, increase the number of composting facilities on Long Island so that more of these institutions can comply. We can go to the next slide just to show you there's like lists, there's so many restaurants and things like that. It's like a huge long list. So it kind of like makes my head explode when I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, we need recycling, we need composting facilities on Long Island. And thank God Glenda's here, but she can't do it alone.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of these facilities applied for the waivers, as you know. And so the DC also was very, what's the word? They limited a whole bunch of places due to, my facility's size. But in reality, there are a lot of locations within, that would be able to go to my facility. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So, DC has to do a lot more work on that. And people did call me to, compost, and, they were told, well, from DC, you don't have to because you're far away. And so this is a list that really does not make sense. So.
It's crazy. So if anybody has ideas, I know we're way over time. So if anyone has ideas about things that we can do to encourage, more of these institutions to comply with the law and compost their, food scraps, please let us know, because we'd like to do some advocacy on this. So that's all I had. The next slide is just a couple of updates. I get some, newsletters from DEC and from the New York State Organics Council. We usually try to participate in their monthly meetings to hear about what's happening all around New York State. And it's so inspiring to see what everyone's doing around the state. I mentioned in the chat, I actually got to visit that Bethlehem composting site when I went up to the Organic Summit this year, and it's fantastic. So on November 14th to 16th, NYSAR, the New York State Association of Reduce, Reuse, Recycle, has an annual conference talking about all these subject matters of composting and recycling in Cooperstown. So, you can Google that information if you're interested in attending. And then we were talking about earlier before the call about composting pumpkins. The state is really encouraging people to do that. And the best way to do it is to, make sure that you kind of break it up and break it into pieces so that it can break down more easily. Because we were saying they actually cause quite a bit of methane from all the pumpkins. So after Halloween, there's pumpkin smashing events and stuff like that. So, and of course, to leave your leaves. You can either mulch the leaves in place and return the nutrients to the soil in the yard that way, or use them for composting because they're carbon rich. So this is a great time to put them into the compost bin and mix with your greens. That's it. Thank you.
Well, I think this wraps up our presentation. We plan to have another public meeting on February 8th, 2023. I know it's some time away, but with the holidays, I know that it's hard for everyone to get together. So we'll definitely keep in touch with whoever wants to be in the loop with our next events and meetings. I know a lot of people left their email in the chat, and if you haven't and you still want to put your email in the chat, please do now. But I think this is great. And the next meeting, we will have it in February, the second Wednesday of February, I believe. And we'll definitely, let you know as it comes closer. And yeah. Thank you everyone for attending.
If anyone wants to volunteer with the Organics Council, please let us know. We're always welcoming new members.
I have a quick question. Mark, were you saying that Newsday was going to put something about composting in this weekend?
That would be this Mark. I'm sorry, Mark.
Okay. Yes, this Mark. Right.
I mean, to steal your show, Mark. Yeah, we've been we presented a food scraps to compost bulletin from the Environmental Advisory Committee for the town and handed it in public, read it and handed it in. And all three news outlets that were there that night asked me for a copy. And we got interviews with all three of them in the last 2 days. And Newsday, both Newsday and Riverhead Local are doing photo shoots of the team to include the municipality, the farmers, our liaison, the climate smart communities, Norfolk Environmental Council, and I wanted the Greater Calverton Civic. And it was really funny because 11:30 is our photo shoot with Riverhead Local at Cornell. And at 12 o'clock, the Newsday people are going to show up. So we're going to change our shirts to make it look like a different day. But the Newsday is going to be putting us on the cover of Our Town. I don't know what that is. It's one section this weekend. So we've got some traction. I mentioned LIOC in the interview with Newsday. So hopefully you people show up on that. We show up on that list as well.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't even know, maybe 6 months ago, we got them to make an article about the community composting that's going on Long Island. So yay, I'm so glad that they're interested in continuing the conversation through the newspaper. Okay, thank you.
Must have been a slow
Okay.
news week.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
The other Mark, yes, the real
Yes.
Mark.
Yes,
The real
thank you.
You're the real Mark, man. All right. Thank you. Keep it up. Keep going. Keep
Aw.
going.
Thank you. That was
Thank
fabulous.
you.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mark Warford, and thank you everyone for coming to this meeting and this presentation. This is wonderful, and I'm so happy to see that so many schools were on for this. So hopefully we can get some of this implemented. Working with some schools.
Yeah, we
So-
had 4 schools on, representatives from 4 different schools. So it's great.
Nice.
How can we get a copy of this recording?
I will be sending it out in a follow-up email to everyone.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Have a
I
great
really
night.
appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving.